basically, I mean, now that you have mentioned that there was some, like, not some, but a large level of political discretion involved in who is going to be selected. When we talk about Pakistan, especially the Pakistan of 2008 to, let's say, 2010,
Yeah.
where we've sort of just transitioned into democracy, and whatever semblance of democracy we had was highly based on networks of clientelism and patronage,
Yeah.
where, you know, parties don't have mechanisms of going to people within the rural areas of Pakistan and, you know, institutionally campaigning. What they do is they go to feudal lords who are patrons, and those feudal lords have their own groups of people. And how it works is you give a favor to the feudal lord, then feudal lord disperses it at his or her discretion. In
Hmm.
most cases, it's a male feudal lord.
Hmm.
So in that case, what we sort of see is that what this program should have sort of ideally, you know, pushed for is to give more autonomy to people who sort of needed it. But if you're even in that, you're adding a layer of clientelism, or probably an extra clientelism, where, you know, you're telling these parliamentarians to choose
Yeah.
which people are eligible for this cash transfer program.
Yeah.
Sort of obviously, you know, leads on to this narrative, and rightfully so, that this is not a universal cash transfer program, but rather a political tool used by the state in power. Some
Yeah.
people might say that it's even, you know, one form of abuse of power, just because that you can manage it. You are choosing, you know, your own,
Yeah.
you're giving more funds to your parliamentarians. This is the same example of giving development funds to your own MNAs,
Yeah.
rather than
So
to the.
all this critique is made at that time. All this critique is made at that time. I'm sympathetic to the view, things are not, we sometimes come down, Pakistan didn't have many tools in its policy kit then, even with the best man. But certainly this design, for all the reasons you've given, was not acceptable. It's not acceptable to the donors. It's not acceptable to the domestic. As you can imagine, the opposition is upset. The opposition says, we're going to boycott this program. This is another waste of state patronage program, the PTI. The targeting of women was not acceptable. It was new and not heard of in Pakistan at the time. You had, I mean, one of the interviews I did with Dr. Kaisar Bengali, he said we had delegations come from the former FATA district saying that in our districts, there's no women don't have national identity cards. We have no history of women getting these transfers. Make an exception for our district with the women, and they claiming tribal tradition. The government of Pakistan refused. And what is interesting, even in that early phase, you have all the opposition parties signing up, perhaps purely for instrumental reasons. Everyone, opposition and the treasury branches, everyone wants to, this is great for your own constituency, for building your own profile in your constituency. Even in the former tribal, there was almost 100% take up in terms of filling out the nominations. And then a lot of them would just get rejected. But 2010, the government decides to phase out what is called the parliamentarians targeting. And the government decides, if we really want to scale up this program, if we really want to get funding, and this is where I have a two-part, for the second part about institutionalization. So one is origins, right? That's already happened. Whatever shape or form this program takes, it's there. The second is institutionalization, not just an institutionalization over time. And that's where there are really, I argue, two audiences. One is the domestic audience, and your biggest domestic audience is the opposition parties. At that time, in this period, PMLN is the big player, PTI is the smaller player, but PMLN is not happy about this program. And your second biggest audience for any government in Pakistan, elected or unelected, is the donors, right? Pakistan is very much plugged into the
Foreign aid and
donor. And here the donors are not happy with this design. So 2010, the government signs a big technical agreement with the World Bank to implement what's called a PMT targeting. that there's going to be a new scientific way of targeting. The World Bank is going to work with the finance ministry in Pakistan, the Benazir Income Support Program, all the stakeholders in the government, and build a formula that's going to become a basis for eligibility. And in the absence, again, remember, Pakistan at that time doesn't have a poverty registry, right? We don't have, the census is not even at that, again, is disputed. So Pakistan basically has survey data. We don't have really the building blocks like many developing countries to build a really sophisticated program. So the World Bank had really pushed for what's called a proxy means test. And so in 2010, a national Pakistan's first poverty census is conducted, and all the way from Karachi to the former FATA districts and Azad Kashmir, all this is a landmark poverty census is conducted in Pakistan, and it takes almost 2 years. 2010, it's a huge logistical exercise, and the government creates a poverty, with the help of the World Bank, designs a poverty scorecard where assets and durable goods, visible durable goods in a typical Pakistani household, are used as proxies for household welfare. And based on it's called a poverty, they call it a poverty scorecard. And based on this scorecard, you either are included or excluded in the program. And the government sets an eligibility criteria. This is a little ad hoc for administrative reasons, of 16.17 out of 100 for inclusion in the program. And that these were budget, because of budget, they had done these budgetary forecasts. And they wanted, the idea was first to a target of getting to 50% of the 15% of the poorest households, and then eventually scale up to 20%. So that is done. That becomes the basis for Pakistan's first poverty registry. And then you see the birth pangs of this new program, this more sophisticated program, right? That comes into being. The donors are playing a big role. And what I was telling you, now BISP starts looking like a lot of its international, it starts to look a lot like its international peers. So an evaluation component is built into the program, right? Because now you have the new form of targeting that's being implemented. BISP develops this research cell, economists from both local economists from within Pakistan who are being recruited into the program to work on monitoring and evaluation. Then you have academics and donor consultants coming, and the birth of evaluation of this program starts.